I will now call this regular workshop meeting of the Jacksonville City Council to order. Council, you have a copy of you've been provided a copy of the proposed agenda for tonight's meeting, and I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Next, we have the adoption of the minutes from the July 18th, 2023 meeting, and also 7 consent items.
Move approval of the minutes and the 7 consent items as presented.
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. All right, first item we have is the non-consent is under number 8, and this is the citizen participation plan. And there's a substantial revision. Let me pull that up here. Tracy Jackson.
Mayor, I was going to let you know that if Ms. Jackson's voice goes out, she said I can handle the presentation. So let's just be patient and see what happens.
And hope for the best. Right?
Well, we'll just see. You're hoping for her voice to stay. I know.
Yeah, there you go.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Thank you for having me. For your approval is a substantial revision of our citizen participation plan. As you know, the City of Jacksonville, we receive entitlement funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the form of the Community Development Block Grant, the CDBG funds. Because we receive those annually, we have to produce a consolidated plan and an annual action plan. And we also have to produce our citizen participation plan to implement those funding plans. The goals of the citizen participation plan include providing continuous community involvement in our CDBG activities, allow community to respond to our funding plans, and allow better communication and involvement between the city and the public. Changes in our plan include partnering with organizations to expand broadband and digital access in low-income areas within the city, and the meeting change for the Neighborhood Improvement Services Advisory Committee. We also wanted to include digital ads and social media when we advertise for our public input meetings, and we needed to address all of our efforts for the resiliency plan that we're developing as a result of natural disasters, and to also respond as we redirect existing funds for activities in a local urgent need. So we're recommending that council approve the revised citizen participation plan as required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And if you have any questions.
Council, any questions of Tracy on this item?
Ms. Jackson, do you foresee any changes happening with HUD that needs to be brought to our attention for consideration? Do you currently see some things on the horizon that HUD might be changing their guidelines, their criteria for municipalities?
Well, there are several changes, such as the resiliency plan. That is the biggest change that we are going through right now. As you remember, we had council gave us permission to engage in some technical assistance for the resiliency plan development. So currently that's what we're doing, and we met about 3 times, and now our next step is to involve all of our partners, such as the county folks and other departments in developing our resiliency plans. But the resiliency plan is going to be a requirement from HUD in order to receive our CDBG funds.
So what exactly are they expecting out of the resiliency plan?
So they're going to, we're going to try to show how our community is going to bounce back, how our resiliency is shown in our in the way that we bounce back when we have a national disaster. So if we don't have a resiliency plan and show with HUD or other funders how we bounce back, then when funds come throughout the state, then they may say, you know, we Jacksonville do not have a plan in place, so we'll award these funds to those folks who do have a resiliency plan. So any funds that's gonna be coming through the state, we're gonna be considered as far as top priority. But if we don't, then of course HUD is going to have an issue with why don't you have a plan to be able to show how your community is gonna bounce back after a natural disaster?
Ron, what was the disposition on that resiliency alliance that was formed, regional?
Well, you talking about the flood coalition? Yeah, I think that's one piece of it. You know, I mean, we're part of the, that group. They haven't come together locally in a while, but they're doing things like trying to get additional funding in the state budget to fund some of the stormwater issues or flooding issues. But, with resiliency, I think that, some of the things that we have in place, in my personal opinion, that get towards resiliency, our hazard mitigation plan. That's a bigger framework. And then what they're looking for, of course, is that we're using that information, like in our projects, like for example, our Ellis pump station. We're basically, improving our Ellis pump station because it got flooded during Florence, and we're doing things like that. So I think that's part of what we have to include in the plan, an explanation of how we are doing things so that we can in fact address some of the resiliency type issues, first from a preventative standpoint and then from a recovery. And I would say one of the items you just approved in the consent agenda is an item, and that's the warm thing. That's part of the recovery plan. So I mean, I don't think it's it's as daunting of a task. I just think we have to basically explain some of the things we're already doing, and certainly when new actions are required, we need to then, take action as a city to address those and then talk about them in our plans.
I think that's probably all you have to do is articulate basically what we're doing already anyway.
What we're doing and things that we need to do to improve, such as, organize all of our nonprofits when they come together and to try to do a one-stop shop instead of having a lot of organizations doing the same. So we're just trying to show what we've done and how we can improve our services to get our community back on its feet.
Good job.
Now, you see a lot of that after Katrina, where the federal government was looking at how communities respond effectively across the board, not just moving water and cleaning debris. Tracy, as part of her tour, we still have houses that have roofs that haven't been repaired, whether that's because of lack of insurance or not sufficient insurance. And that's part of where our discussion about WARM came in, is that they can come in and help us close that gap for some people that are in need. So I think the resiliency plan for us, obviously citywide, has a lot of value, but definitely in terms of how we're going to effectively bring in external partners to make an impact for our citizens. It's a big deal for us. If you think back to North Carolina, when the state laid out the transportation improvement plan, the concept was if you don't have a project on the STIP, then you couldn't get it funded. So same kind of concept. If we don't have our resiliency plan included in this, you may not get funding. We don't want to eliminate, as Dr. Washington's saying, there's so many more challenges with CDBG right now. As our allocation goes down, we don't want to lose those other opportunities to acquire additional funds to help. So
we're going to also partner with the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, of course, the Insurance Commission, to educate our homeowners on about the insurance and the do's and don'ts of insurance. So we need to do a better job in educating our public.
Ms. Jackson, I just have one more question. With this resiliency plan, is this something that you develop or do you contract with an outside consultant?
That is something that we're going to develop because we're receiving TDA.
The city of Jacksonville,
Yes.
your department?
Yes.
Okay.
We're receiving some technical instruction on how to develop that plan and what is needed as far as what HUD is requiring.
It's really going to be a city's resiliency plan.
Yes.
You know, and it's just gonna include, Tracy will include in her plan aspects of our resiliency and recovery plans.
This is just an effort for us to put together everything that we've done, that we've learned with best practices from what happened to in Hurricane Florence, and our efforts to get back on our feet and get our residents back on their feet and get them back into their homes.
You'll see all departments involved in the process.
I'm just wondering whether there's a call there for some sort of ad hoc committee that not only is city affairs and operations, but also would include all nonprofits and other agencies, civic affairs, whatever, that for them to help form that resiliency plan, rather than just laying it on the city staff itself.
And that's part of that concept too, Mr. Bittner, that you don't want to have redundancy in those services. And so part of our process through the action plan and through our streamlining is to make sure that we're having the services provided by one organization and not duplicating that. So it's with all of Tracy's processes, that includes input from multiple partners. And so I agree that we'll get their input. It's definitely easier for us to guide that process since it is our plan, but we'll have input from multiple partners.
Very good.
Any other questions? Right, all you're asking us to do is to approve the correction.
That is correct.
Amendment.
Make a motion, we approve the revised citizen participation plan.
Second.
Discussion, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. That moves us down to number 9. This is acceptance of the 2023 North Carolina Governor's Crime Commission grant. This is what pays for our police crisis counselor and mental health social worker. And I assume the Deputy Chief Dorn is going to present for us tonight.
I am. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So we are asking that you approve this grant. Some of the things that we're going to discuss here is just the overall dynamics of what the police crisis counselor and our mental health partners do. So, do we have that? Oh, sorry. So when you look at the most common types of calls that those individuals are dealing with, it's citizens that feel threatened by unusual behavior or presence of persons with mental illness, as well as family members, friends, or concerned parties seeking help during psychiatric emergencies. So sometimes you may see we've had several individuals in our community that you may see wandering in traffic, causing disturbances, things of that nature based off mental health issues. And our crisis counselor and our mental health counselor deal with those individuals regularly. And it's not just that original contact, it's that continued follow-up looking for that long-term treatment and solution rather than just addressing the problem right then and then it reoccurring the next day. And then those with mental illness may call the police for help because of imagined threats and or seeking help for suicidal ideations. We're going to look at some numbers in just a minute that may be surprising or may not, but it's right here in our community, and officers and our crisis staff deal with that every single day. Officers encounter persons with mental illness behaving inappropriate in public and in our detention facilities. And if you look among the 4 million seriously mentally ill individuals, at any given time, half of them are not receiving treatment. 10% are problematic, being homeless or incarcerated, and 1% are dangerous, violent towards others, including homicides and other types of crimes. So let's look at our patient demographics. These are the individuals that they're dealing with regularly. From July of 2022 to June 30th, they dealt with 1,897 individuals. Those demographics are about split equally between males and females. And then when you look at the demographics further, the majority of the individuals that they encounter are white. It totals about 60%. The next highest is African Americans, totaling about 27%. And then it dwindles down from there. The types of victims that they encounter on a regular basis, if you look, you'll see that suicidal individuals are 28%, substance abuse is domestic violence, family violence is next at 23, substance abuse at 27, and then the others, overdoses, life stressors, and things of that nature. So like we said in the previous slides, it may be officers encounter them on the street, it may be a call from another concerned citizen, it may be a family member, or it may be that individual directly. But the primary focus of these individuals are, like I said, they not only get involved in the beginning, but they're able to follow that through, provide guidance and assistance to the families as well as the individuals in crisis. And it also frees up law enforcement to handle other types of calls. So it's a very important role. One thing that I do want to mention is the fact that these counselors are working with our citizens to maintain a safe community. They're getting these individuals off the street. They're helping them obtain services, gain resources, and things of that nature. And just as important, they're there for our staff. They work with other members throughout the city, whether it's them and themselves in crisis, or family members, or going through stressful situations. So it's not just for the citizens. They also work with our staff and do so on a regular basis. And I think that's very important for their health and well-being as well. So again, I'll answer any questions if I can.
How many counselors and social workers do we have?
We have 3 total.
Okay.
We started with Dr. Gilbert in 2015-16, and through grants, we've been able to add, our other is under a grant, and she's a youth substance abuse counselor.
Is that enough? I mean, I don't know what the workload, like.
The 1,897 is primarily new contacts. That's not counting individuals that they follow up on and continue service with. I can tell you that just in the last week or two, I've been out on a couple of calls, going to or from a meeting, lunch or something of that nature, got out on calls, and we've utilized those counselors. One of them, just a perfect example, was when we looked at the age demographics. One of them was a 10-year-old boy, and the call originally came out that the boy was in crisis and the mother was holding him down. I was the first officer on scene. That was not the case. The 10-year-old was holding the mother down. And that's something that family's been dealing with. But through the help of our counselors that showed up that day, I think they've been dealing with this for quite some time, but I think now they actually have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And that's just one of a couple that I myself dealt with in the last couple of weeks.
So this is in addition, this will add counselors?
No, sir, this will continue to fund them.
Okay.
So on the agenda item, they're funded through October 1st of this year, and we have the resources to continue that funding through this year, the 23-24 out of our budget, and then that's something that would come up for budget discussions for the 24-25 for the remainder.
How long have we had this program in place? I know Dr. Gilbert's been with us for quite some time.
2015-16 is when we brought her on staff. Yes, sir.
And then the other 2 counselors came on when?
I think one came on about 2 years ago under a grant, and Mr. Reese came on last year.
Deputy Dorn, can you go back to the previous slide before the question?
Yes, ma'am.
With your types of victimizations and looking at the fatalities, do you have the data that shows the amount of fatality that represents each one of those categories? Like for individuals, the 9% for overdose, how many have resulted in a fatality? Domestic violence, 23%, how many have resulted in a fatality? Do we have that data?
I don't have it in front of me, but I'm sure we can get you that data because they do track it. And a lot of the services we provide, going to like the overdose, the suicidal issues, is the types of victims. When you look at the demographics and the things of that nature, the other is tracked through the COSAP grant, which is also our substance abuse counselor. So they can tell you exactly how many overdoses we've had for the year, how many have resulted in fatalities and things of that nature. So we track under that, just under a different grant.
All right. Can you fast forward to the, so when we're looking at race and we're talking about these demographics with our counselors, considering the fact that Jacksonville is a very growing community and we have many multiculturals that are starting to grow within the city of Jacksonville, does our mental health staff and our counselors support our diversification of our citizens in the city of Jacksonville and their cultural background, thinking about how one culture would handle substance abuse or domestic violence a little bit different than another culture? Do we have that diversity with our staff?
Yes, ma'am, I think we do, and not only that, but they've engaged with veteran services, with the reentry program, the homeless shelter, so that they use every aspect possible to reach every facet of diversity.
Mayor, you'll remember from our retreat on Thursday, one of the things that Chief Yanero pointed out is the change in what we're responding to now. So that reiterates what DC Dorn's saying. The change in policing as we move forward is going to require a change in how we staff. So this grant's an excellent opportunity for us to continue that service. But I believe we're going to have to take a conscious effort, and that's what DC Dorn's team does. They analyze the calls for service, they analyze the metrics of how we operate now to find out where those gaps are at, and then we need to fill those gaps moving forward. So I think you're going to see a change from 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago to what you're going to see over the next 5 years. This is a good opportunity for us because it doesn't require an additional funding source for FY24, but as DC Dorn says, for 25, we're going to have to look at those areas. Maybe we're having to move some areas, and I think that's the comment you had made, Mayor, back to Chief Yanero. You've got to make sure we keep police on streets and we're able to respond to these different types of calls now.
One of the key things when we talked about partnerships, though, is that we're not providing the services, we're just kind of monitoring the individuals and trying to make sure they get the services they need. And so there's a lot of partner agencies that are really responsible for providing many of these services that these individuals need. And that's the community aspect of it that we really need to make sure that, that all our partners are fully engaged. I mean, you look at how many on there, on the other chart, and, you know, are related to things with life stressors, suicidal, you know, to me, that's some of the Trillium stuff. You know, and the question really is, how effective is that program that the state is managing? I mean,
And we do monitor that, and we're very cognitive of that. For example, in the morning, I have a meeting with Dix, and we have several of those meetings monthly to look at the resources and how they're being utilized and where we can improve that. But if you, on the agenda item that was submitted, if you look at the jump in percentage of these individuals or these types of calls that we're dealing with, these counselors provide the officers the opportunity to go there, determine what's going on, and then utilize the resources of those counselors to do the evaluations, do the interviews, and start looking for resources. And that's time that the officer is allowed to be out there on the street.
Other questions? They're coming to us tonight and asking us to authorize the city manager or his designee to accept the grant funding and adopt the associated budget ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have some topics for discussion. Go down to number 10, and we're looking at the FY23 fourth quarter financial and investment reports.
Mayor, we sent these out to you last week to allow you to look at the investment report and the Q4 financial report. One thing I do want to remind everyone is that the fourth quarter financial report isn't necessarily the number that you're going to see when the audit comes out. Just because we finished our fiscal year, it doesn't mean that our numbers have all finalized. The example I typically like to say is with sales tax, those numbers will come in after the fiscal year is completed. There are other things that are booked at a later date to go into the fiscal year. So you'll see some differences, some significant differences on revenue streams. You'll see that as the audit comes in. And then as we said last week, the audit then kicks off our next year. Once we get that presentation in November, then we'll have that opportunity to review these numbers. But we send you these numbers in advance, so if you have any questions, you can ask Sabrina for any clarification that we have in the numbers. I think they're, as we've looked at them, they're as projected. As we're following the year, the trends have followed well. The expenditures look positive, and then the revenue streams were right on point. And then with the investment numbers, you see those percentages are back to where we'd like to see the interest rates at.
What is the FHLB step up, it's our lowest one there, it's only 1%. So next to the bottom there, it's a 36 month. And we've got 3 million, is that, what is that?
If you look at the investment date, it was a longer term investment that we did in 2021, so
Okay.
the rate is just
Okay.
lower. That's where the rates were at the time, unfortunately.
Okay. What does the FHLB stand for anyway, just for?
I would have to get back to you on that.
Federal Home
It
Loan
is.
Bank.
Home
It-
Loan Bank or something?
Yeah, Federal
It is a
Home Loan
federal
Bank.
bank.
It's at 1.04, so we want the maturity rate to hurry up and get here, right?
Yes, we do. And we we stagger the investment, so we will have some that are longer and some short. And unfortunately, when the interest rates are very low like that and you do have to ladder them out, then sometimes you can end up a little behind there. So, luckily it's only 3 million, only, but
Looks pretty strong to me.
it is much better. We're very pleased.
Well, we'll see if the auditors are pleased. They weren't pleased last year, were they?
We'll see, yeah.
Any questions?
I have a question, Ms. Williams, with our city funding, we basically do all of our banking through First Citizens, is that correct?
We do. We do our banking through First Citizens, and we do have accounts with the trust. So we have a lot of funds there. But First Citizens is the bank that we use.
But we go through a periodic, go
We
out
do.
for bids
Mhm.
and then pick the best option at the time we get our bids in.
Yes.
In a couple of years, hasn't been that long.
No.
Like how many years that rotate?
We typically try to do at least once every 5 years.
You don't
That's
do it too often, being kind of thing.
right. It's not a fun, when you
No.
have to switch banks, it's not fun.
Do you ever come across it where you might have another bid and that bank would, like say, First Citizens, just step up and meet the offer just so you don't have to change everything? Because that is kind of a big pain. I didn't know that was possible.
Not really. I mean, what they bid is what they
Gotcha.
bid, and they just try to be as competitive as possible.
And of course, banking with them, I guess like we get some kind of, what do you call it, incentives from them?
With First Citizens, right? I mean, we don't have fees. I mean, they're, it just all depends on the package that they put together.
That's big in and of itself.
Right.
The fees, lack of fees.
Do we still get float?
We still what?
Float?
Float, yes.
Got just a question on the general fund. All other revenues are 66%, which is separate from the sales tax, so forth. What would be some examples, some other revenues that would be coming in at the end of the fiscal year between now and audit time?
Well, think about that line, Mayor. That would be where we would have any of our general fund allocations would come into that line item as well. So you wouldn't see that through the year. If your revenues are exceeding your expenditures, you don't have to use your fund balance at that point. You're going to see that. That's the number. We'd like to see that number always low because that means we're not utilizing fund balance to balance it out.
Okay.
That's the largest revenue stream that's going to be in that category.
You're right. That's exactly where that was about. Balancing the checkbook.
That's the only one
Balance
that
the
you
check.
that you hope stays
Which
low.
one is that? You're talking about the,
All of the revenues, because that would be our fund balance allocation. So it's the only one you want to see low in the revenue side of things.
After you fill all the other pots, then whatever's left, you fill out of that one.
Use that number.
Okay.
Mayor, I'll give you one more update before you go off this item. We did receive notification yesterday that we received the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. I can't tell you how many years exactly, but I do know we've received it for at least the last 17 years, and that's exactly how long Ms. Adams has worked for the city. So there may be some correlation there, but 17 years strong, we've achieved that again, and we're very excited about it because that reporting is a big part of our transparency, and that's something this council's talked about on multiple occasions, is to be able to get that information out to our citizens to show what we do, which is a reason why we do the quarterly reports as well, so that it's in the forefront and it helps us at the audit as well. So hopefully this will lead right into an excellent audit.
Ms. Williams, what is our current credit rating?
Ms.
Adams, I'm sorry.
Okay. It's AA2, I think, right now, which is.
Did we fall? Didn't we used to be? Okay. We've always held at.
We were
double.
upgraded actually, in the last several years. I'd have to get back to you on the date, but.
The state of North Carolina's rate has actually moved over the last few years and actually within the last quarter. Ours, not so much, but the state's fluctuates a lot more, and you typically see that.
Well, the US rate dropped.
We
US dropped as well, so
I think we dropped.
US and
Rate
state
two.
shows movement. Hopefully our stays consistent.
Our rating, yeah, it was just affirmed, within the last, I would say, year. I feel like fairly recently it was.
Well, the advantage we have is we have to have a balanced budget
Yes.
versus the federal government who can spend money like if there's no tomorrow.
Putting it in the bank.
Right now, they're sitting on $35 trillion in debt. What do you expect?
We don't have that same level of debt, Mayor.
Right, exactly. If we did, we'd be out of business. We'd be,
We're slightly better than that.
fortunately, the state of North Carolina doesn't allow us to accumulate that type of debt, right? Any other questions, Mrs. Adams?
Not a question, just congratulations on the
Yeah, good job.
recognition and thank you for your hard work.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, so we go to number 11. Economic Development Policy, and we have Anthony going to present this one.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity. This is going to be my best presentation of the 13 years since I've been here. And the reason is,
Best or longest?
the best.
Okay.
And the reason is because this is the only slide.
Oh.
Oh, my goodness.
Round of applause. Huh?
You want to recess, Mayor? You go ahead.
I feel a little faint.
We're gonna get you to dinner on time. So, as you recall, we spent probably 30-45 minutes on this in July and had some really good dialogue, and the intent at the end of that meeting was to leave the goals as well as the policy draft with council to come back at this point in time to ask any questions that you may have. So I really do not have any content to add, but I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you have, and we'd love for the council to consider approving this policy if you see fit.
How's progress coming along out there in the frontier?
They're moving dirt every single day, at least every single day it's not raining. So the second pond is coming together really quickly, and the stormwater pipe is going in the ground. We should see the road being cut through probably within the next 30 to 45 days.
And that road will come out
Right next to the YMCA.
right next to it.
Yes, sir.
And it will connect.
Yes, it will.
What do you expect to be like buildable, like sellable lots? Like, when do you project that?
To have that ready? I
Or just like the area, just in general, like, what, the next 6 months?
Well, it'll be sooner than that. So as soon as we get done with Frontier, within the next, 45 days or so, they'll be marketable.
Okay.
In fact, one of the things we're considering right now is whether or not we put them on the market now. But there are other opportunities out there that we'll bring to you soon as to whether we do a public-private partnership on a shell building, or, we'll figure out what the best strategy is, but at some point, we probably will end up marketing.
Gotcha.
It's gonna be around 30 total acres of developable land.
How many acres?
About 30, sir.
With the possibility of mitigating some wetlands in there, maybe able to be turning those into buildable sites,
So
or at least maybe parking or something.
that's correct, yes, sir. So when the Supreme Court made their determination on wetlands, that was after we were issued our wetland permit for that location. So we had some constraints on us with regard to wetland impacts that probably no longer apply because of that determination.
But since it's so recent, we don't really know how it's going to work out. We'll need to work with our engineer to see what is viable and what still has to be conserved. But yes, I mean, it's looking like we could open up probably another 4, 5, 6 acres.
Mayor, we're actively working, as some of you are aware, we're actively working to sell those lots. So if we get a business that comes in right now and they say we want to purchase that for something, we'll bring that to you as soon as the offer comes in so that you can consider that. Because it is very close, as Anthony said, you're 45 days away from having it completely site-ready, buildable, better than most any other sites you're going to find, not only in the region, but in the state. And that's how we're navigating some of this process is we want to get it through a permitting process so that people can come in and start building up instead of doing all the dirt work and the stormwater in the planning process.
They don't have to wait a while to get started. They can start right off the bat.
It's a huge value add.
Yeah.
They just won't wait.
Shovel-ready
This
sites.
Yeah.
is the reality. The reality is they won't. They'll go somewhere else.
Well, and the great thing is, out of all the improvements we're making out there, the council only put in, I think it was $40,000 or $50,000, and we're talking about $1 million+ worth of work. So there's tons of grant money out there that we can invest in sites like this in the future, and we hope to continue that success. We were able to make some new friends yesterday from Australia. Yep, and they have a business that they want to bring to the United States. It seems like it could be a good fit for Jacksonville. We spent some time out there at Frontier talking about what we're planning on. And then we also have another business coming on Friday, and they actually would be perfect for that site. So it wouldn't surprise me if we're back here talking to you soon, fingers crossed. But the whole point of this policy is to give us the tools to start engaging in those public-private partnerships and giving us the process to come back here and talk to you about whether it be, incentives or, whatnot.
This is a big change in how the city supports economic development. In the past, all we've done is we've been passive partners. We send our money over to Joe Ed and have them do all the work and the heavy lifting. The city is now, because of staff and because of our assistance, is now actually actively participating in economic development. And so we're bringing properties to the Joe Ed folks for them to sell, and we can market too. I'm hoping that we will be able to make some sales and then be looking for another piece of property very soon to continue that. So I think we've become a much better partner with our Joe Ed folks, and I think they're becoming a better partner with us too. So instead of just taking the money and doing their thing, now they're actually engaging with us on these projects, Project Frontier, and of course they were very involved in the group from Australia yesterday, and so I'm excited about our economic opportunities here for Jacksonville and what we're doing. I think we're on the right track, guys.
And like we talked about at the retreat, we're targeting certain types of jobs, because the intent is to increase that level of wealth for our entire community. So those are the only ones that we're looking at. The folks from Australia as well as the ones on Friday, those both hit that mark.
That supports the city's goals. This, my compliments, Mr. Prince, on a well-crafted framework. This gives latitude for decisions where decisions need to be made. It doesn't lock us into anything very specific, but it allows us to do things when the opportunity and the need arise to promote, business growth here and improve quality of life for our citizens. So to me, this looks very well crafted, and I'm particularly glad to see a few pieces in there that are fun for, working with our partners, not only Joe Ed, but also our own tourism board and the county tourism board, and
That's right.
working with the college and the chamber and other things for some entrepreneurial ventures. So keeping all of these lines open and working with our partners is a good thing.
Speaking of which, have we had any, with the McAdams group working out there, getting all the information together for that rec land out in Williamsburg, have they had any contact with our county counterparts at all yet?
Yes, sir.
So they
Yes,
have-
all part of the process. We've included the staff at the county as part of our process, and they've been in communication with them individually and in our larger meetings. We're keeping everybody involved, Mayor. If they can be a partner with us on these projects, we're taking them with us.
Partners with buy-in.
Partner with a bag of cash.
Yeah.
Bring
Always-
money.
Always better to be proactive
Got
than
plenty of
reactive.
ideas, just need the money.
That's right.
Yeah.
And just for the folks at home, I've got to plug the survey because the survey just came live. It's on our city webpage. So if you have feedback and you want to give it to us, go to the city's website, take the survey. It's a great way to kind of give your 2 cents as to what you think should happen at the 400 acres and with recreation and parks in general.
Yeah, that survey covers the entire community, not just 400 acres, because remember, we're focused on that larger plan, and then a drill down will happen based on the amenities and the services that we're trying to match up. And if we have a shortage, then we'll bring that back to council to create something that fills those voids.
Yeah, I'd suggest sending that on to your friends and associates too, which I have when I found out that it was just going live.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you for doing that.
So is everybody okay with signing off on the resolution? They don't need a formal.
Yes, let's get a motion in a second.
Okay. Make it legal.
Make it legal. Move we approve the resolution as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One slide. One slide.
Write it down.
I'm so proud of you.
We'll take a picture of it.
It never happened again. Write it down.
I don't expect it every time.
Not every time. Can't do it every time.
Maybe the next 3 times.
Okay. Okay, we'll do our one city moment.
Thank you, Mayor. We have a lot of exciting things going on. This last cycle, we had our Running with the Law event. You can see a ton of people showing up to support a great cause and enjoy getting out and being active. You know, these are things that we want to do within our community that encourage involvement and encourage interaction. If you look to the far right of the screen, Mayor, you're going to see Chief Tallman with a big smile because at this event, this was the culmination of our police versus fire, I'm going to call it an athletic challenge. And Chief Tallman smiling, Chief Yanero not so much because the fire department ended up winning this competition. And that just shows, it shows good dedication from both our police and fire personnel, but it's an awesome community involvement activity that allows our people to get out and not only have exercise in a beautiful community, but to exercise together. And so we were very excited for the turnout this year. The numbers were fantastic. And just for the overall event, we've had some really good weather in the last bit now. Again, Chief Tallman's still smiling, giddy, because he's got a medal. So very excited to see the turnout. The other event we had was National Night Out, and for everyone that was able to participate, very exciting to see tons of people at National Night Out, and the weather again was fantastic. Compared to last year, it was so much better. The best part about National Night Out is the community involvement. We had so many different community organizations this year present and active and stayed throughout fireworks and even after the fireworks. Our police and fire personnel were all over. We had city staff out hosting tents as well, if you're able to see some of those. We had an awesome food trailer area, which it's exciting to have those partners in town. We enjoy having multiple food vendors that can bring their trailers for our events and to be sharing what they have in the community. As Mr. Prince already shared, our recreation team was out gathering input for people as they've been doing all day today here in City Hall and at the Commons. But we were active, and it was exciting to know that people interacted with us, not just to pick up stickers, but because they generally seem to care. National Night Out's an awesome event that historically brings together community members and our police, but we do it so much better in the fact that we have involvement across the board. We had our churches, we had our nonprofits, we had food, we had city, we had county, the Marine base, everyone there to be a part of such an awesome event here at Riverwalk Park. The bike rodeo, phenomenal. I saw people running to get to the bike rodeo to put their top 3 choices in so they get a bike. One lady had a stroller and pushed that sucker. I think there was a baby in the stroller, but she was sprinting there. She would have won the race the other day for sure. And I really hope she ended up with a bicycle. Great job. Sergeant Sawyer was our MC to get us kicked off, and a good job to the mayor for guiding us through the opening ceremonies. And then, this year we also transferred our fireworks down to the baseball field instead of being across the water. And it worked out really well. We were able to navigate through that process effectively, and it's good to get our team out throughout the night. So, awesome event. Can't wait for next year. We're out here kissing babies and shaking hands. So, great time, but one and all.
Very good.
Thanks, Mayor.
Very good.
All right. Entertain a motion to go into closed session at this time. To discuss personnel matters.
So moved.
Second, sorry.
All in favor?
That one slide, but you're sleeping.
Yeah, there you go.
I think everybody's okay with that. So we're back in open session, and at this time, out of closed session, at this time, I would entertain a motion as to the increase as we stated in salary for the manager and for the city attorney.
Yeah, the council as a whole expressed pleasure of the performance of the manager and the attorney, and decided that a merit increase of 2% effective the first pay period following this meeting was justified, and that passed.
Get that as a motion?
That's a
That's a
motion.
motion,
It's 2%.
Yes, sir.
2%. First pay period and following this meeting.
I'll second.
I should say, and not, what do we say about the 2% in January? Just,
Yeah, that don't be in consideration for us, that all other
okay,
staff members. And I think for the record, it should be clear that Mr. Ray and I, accident or no accident, we have already gotten a 3% COLA, just like all other city employees. I think that should be on the record, too.
And this is based on their evaluation, which the other evaluation was cut in December.
okay.
Motion?
Motion and a second. Logan second.
All right, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Move we
opposed?
adjourn.
No, motion to adjourn, Mr. Bidler.
You get a 5-minute break before you go home, that's all you get.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you all, appreciate it.